first, while it's on my mind, um, if anybody needs me, I'll be leaving at 10:30 today. So if we need to modify our office hours, as needed. I'm heading out tomorrow for a military veterans fundraiser that I'm calling the auction for in Virginia Beach, Virginia. They contacted me because they heard that I raise money for charities and so yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing Wednesday. So we're going to have a modified class Wednesday. What I mean by that is, you've heard me say this over and over. It's not about the rules. You know the rules of the game. It's about practice. It's about playing hands. It's about getting reps. It's about playing. So what we're going to do, there's no knowledge. I've given you all the knowledge for exam 3. Now it's just practice. So what we'll do on Wednesday is, for those of you that want to play, those of you that want to practice, small groups or by yourself, and I'll just be on call. My dad and I are traveling to West Virginia together. And so I'll be on call while he drives, and we can FaceTime. We can talk. If you're going over practice and you're like, hey, we're kind of confused on this, give me a holler. It'll just be like I'm here, except instead of me coming up with the questions, I want us to be able to come up with questions, which I think we can, right? So again, no new knowledge. And that was important going into the break, because that would be not cool, having a week and a day gap, and then all of a sudden the Monday before exam having more stuff to learn, right? So what I'm hoping is, today we'll do some practice. Wednesday, you do some practice. I'll be available. You have the whole break to study, to practice, and then on Monday it's fine-tuning last bit before our exam on Wednesday. Okay? Any questions? All right. MC Hammer time. I use this one for 310, but for 310 we just did agonistic groups. Here we're going to still do agonistic groups, but we should be able to say who's in those groups, right? So here's the scenario. We're going to have 3 scenarios. It's going to be a long question, but 3 scenarios. And then I'm going to give you examples of how I can ask it. We're trying to nail in this nail in one strike. Functional task. I start with the hammer touching the nail. My elbow's extended. I'm going to proceed to speed up elbow flexion, slow down elbow flexion, speed up elbow extension, smack. Speed up elbow flexion, slow down elbow flexion, speed up elbow extension, smack. So on the test, I could say, which of the following muscles and through what type of contraction sped up the elbow flexion in this functional task? Identify the group, identify the contraction. Who's in the group? Look for one of those on the answer choices. Did the same muscles both speed up elbow flexion and slow down elbow flexion? Okay. That's what we're assessing, right? So I could ask on the test, what agonists, which of the following muscles and through what contraction slowed down the elbow flexion? And then finally, speeding up the elbow extension. If I hit the hammer on the nail, I didn't need muscles to slow down the extension. Literally, the collision slowed down the extension. But once we answer these 3 scenarios, I will give you a bonus question at the wrist for the collision. So, speed up elbow flexion. What are the agonistic muscles? What is the contraction? Slowing down elbow flexion, agonistic muscles, contraction. Speeding up elbow extension, agonistic muscles, contraction. Go. Play. Practice. Get some reps. Am I saying that right? Get some reps. Yeah. This is a good way to practice answer choices. Once you establish your agonist, then you could say, all right, what can Campbell do? I'll pick one random agonist and a contraction, and one random antagonist and a contraction. Anconius concentric, Anconius eccentric, brachialis concentric, brachialis eccentric. This is an example, but that should also be something you can practice, is how I'm going to ask questions and how I'm going to ask for answers. And that's something you can practice with your group. It's where you could randomly come up with answer choice options. All right, guys. Again, we walk a fine line between giving you enough time to play and not having enough time for more reps or practice questions. If I asked speeding up elbow flexion, elbow flexors through concentric contraction. Who are the elbow flexors? Brachialis, brachioradialis, biceps brachii. On the test, I can choose any one of those, and I'll just say concentric, eccentric. And I'll pick an antagonist, like the tricep or Anconius, and say concentric, eccentric. The same muscles that sped me up can't push me to a stop. So when it comes time to put on the brake, I need to turn off flexors, and I need to turn on the extensors. If I'm trying to slow down going up, gravity could do it, but gravity is very limited. That's like me wanting to buy a treat for $1, and gravity's like, I give you 50 cents. And it's like, gravity, that's so sweet of you, but I need a little more to accomplish the task, all right? So gravity can't slow down your flexion, but at a very limited rate. So I need muscles that can also slow down my flexion. Those are extensors. Triceps brachii, Anconius. Through eccentric contraction, I can slow down the flexion. That light switch, when we turn on those extensors, we get to keep the lights on for 2 tasks. We turn on those extensor lights and they slow down the flexion, and they can keep shining bright to speed up the extension. That's plyometrics. That's a plyometric sequence. Slowing down motion one way, changing my direction, and speeding up motion concentrically through the way they do. Who are my extensors? Triceps brachii, Anconius. We don't need to say triceps brachii, medial head, lateral head, long head, because saying triceps brachii and ending it like there infers all 3 heads. It would just be redundant. When we get into the shoulder, we have to say long head because the other 2 don't cross. Just as a reminder. What slowed down my extension? Smacking the hammer on the nail. But new scenario. What if at the last second, split second, you realize that's not the right nail? You've already sped up the flexion. You've already slowed down the flexion, and you've already sped up the extension. But at the last possible second, you want to stop it. Would it be biceps brachii concentric, biceps brachii eccentric, triceps brachii concentric, triceps brachii eccentric? Don't answer it out loud. Those are your answer choices. Give it some thought. You do not want to hit the nail with the hammer. You want to stop it. You want to break it You want to slow it down. You want to slow down that elbow extension. Which of the following muscles and through which type of contraction could you accomplish them? If you have an answer, look up at me so that I know you've done it. Good, good. Okay, still got a couple. Of those answer choices, which one is the correct answer? Biceps brachii. Outstanding. See, we're learning we're learning how to tie in reality. Muscles influence our motion through contraction. And contractions isn't just something we memorize or learn. We have to apply it. We have to apply it. In rehab, we have to apply it. In strength and conditioning, we have to apply it. In medicine, we have to apply it. We have to apply the contractions to the muscles and the movements. All right, here's your bonus question. When that hammer smacks that nail, there is going to be a moment, a torque, a rotational force caused by the nail pushing on the hammer at the wrist. What agonist at the wrist am I going to really need to recruit? For the sake of this conversation, visualize it as isometrically to make sure that I give maximum energy transfer from the hammer onto the nail. But which agonist am I really going to have to turn on at the wrist to prevent the motion of the nail pushing back up at the hammer? Give that some thought. Who are wrist pullers? Not specific muscles, just what groups do we have at the wrist that pull in directions of motion? We have flexors and extensors, and then we have ulna and radial deviators. Can you see how we can eliminate the flexors and the extensors? Because the force from the hammer is frontal to the wrist. So we're either looking at radial or ulna deviators. Does that make sense how we can kind of look at the clues and the process of elimination and change? So the nail is going to be trying to radial deviate you when you hit it. So you need all the deviators to turn on. Similar in baseball, or I guess it could be golf too, but in baseball, if you let go, it's not a bat, but you want to keep it gripped while you make an impact, because if you don't, the ball's going to hit the bat out of your hand. It's very similar. If you let go of those ulna deviators, Those all the deviators need to turn on to make sure that nail doesn't radial deviate. All right. Speaking of, how about this practical question? So on the test, I might take screenshots and do a before and after. Start position. Let's do A to B, and let's go B to C. So two questions. Question number one, A to B. Question number two, B to C. A to B, B to C. This is what gravity would do by itself. A to B, B to C. I will walk around with it just in case you want to try it out. All right, guys, what is gravity trying to do to my wrist? So I was here. Gravity's trying to do this. Now, that may sound weird. Like, how can gravity be trying to make something in your body go up? It's like, well, that's a first-class lever. As you put it. Remember, one of the functions is one goes down, the other goes up. So gravity trying to bring my pinky side down makes my thumb side come up. It's first-class lever. So gravity's trying to radial deviate me. Outstanding. The last thing I need are radial deviators. I need ulnar deviators. Who are those muscles? Flexor carpi ulnaris, extensor carpi ulnaris. I said the wrist is cool. Concentric, when the motion matches the muscle. Eccentric, when the motion is opposite the muscles. Good. All right. Let's do a proprioception. Let's do So can we see that? Let's do elbows. This is things they do in rehab and therapy. So can we see from the video that it's little oscillations of flexions and extensions. That's all it is. It's just little flexions and little extensions. Okay. What we need I think this is a good practice. What we need to do is ask ourselves, okay, those little oscillations are happening in pretty quick, small amounts of time. It's not slowly slowing down, so it's quick. So if I have cycles of flexion extension, something's got to speed up my flexion, something's got to slow down my flexion, something's got to speed up my extension, something's got to slow down my extension. Does that make logical sense? So we should be able to identify which muscles and through which contraction, even though it's in small little windows of time, everything takes time to speed up and slow down. So if we're watching this guy do these oscillations on this little body weight exercise, and I say, what muscles and what contraction would be speeding up his elbow flexion when it comes time to speed up the flexion? Flexors, concentric, flexors oral, brachialis, brachioradialis, biceps, brachii. The same muscles that speed up the flexion can't push me to a stop, so I got to turn those off, turn on my extensors to slow down the flexion. Triceps, brachii, and cones. Now, I get a double dip. The plyometric sequence is a little double dip. The plyometric sequence means I can leave those lights on for a little longer because they're going to do two things back to back. They're going to slow down the flexion, change my direction, and speed up the extension. But those same muscles can't slow down my extension. So I got to turn those lights off and I got to turn on my flexors to slow down the extension, stay on to speed up my flexion. And I'm going to turn those off and turn on my extension. And it's just going to go over and 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 over again. That's how this works. Has anybody ever seen these blades used in therapy before? They're great for neural training. And you can do them through different ranges of motion. You go forward, closer to, but the concept is still the same. It's just turning lights on and off, turning muscles on and off. Yeah, it's stuff. On that phase, when he lowers himself down, if I asked you just between these two, upward rotators or downward rotators? What's gravity trying to do to his shoulders and his scapula? Like if he held onto the bar, but he relaxed all of his muscles, wouldn't the exercise be trying to upwardly rotate him? Does that make sense? So I wouldn't need upward rotators because the exercise is trying to upwardly rotate me. I would need downward rotators. And the downward rotators are going to work concentric. See, he's already upwardly rotated right there. He's doing some depression, retraction stuff, but let's start when he gets the arm moving. Downward rotators through eccentrics. Downward rotators through concentrics when he comes back up. Downward rotators through concentric, eccentric. See if I can find out. When he goes from there to there, elevators and depressors. If I ask between those two, because like I said, said, guys, human motion is a lot of combination of things. So I would never ask you to pick between elevators, depressors, protractors, and retractors when there's some combination. Okay? Wish I could pause it. Yeah, I'll let you go. All right, isometric. Write down these answer choices. I'm going to give you things to choose from. Upward or downward rotators. That's like A or B, upward or downward rotators. And then elevators or depressors. That's like 1 and 2. So like A1, A2, B1, B2. So in other words, on the test, I might say, which two agonists are working, holding this position? And I might say upward rotators, elevators, upward rotators, depressors, downward rotators, elevators, downward rotators, depressors. Give that some thought. Holding that position, which two agonists really be working to hold that position? All right, guys, make a list of your agonists. So we elevators or depressors? Depressors, good. Make a note of who those muscles are for practice. And then I'm going to show you kind of how we can apply this yellow and blue make green stuff. Upward or downward rotators? Good. Make a list of those muscles here. And then see if any muscle is in both groups. Is there any individual muscle that's in both? Outstanding. The pectoralis minor is a depressor and a downward rotator. So in terms of scapular muscles go, now we know there's some shoulder stuff happening, we'll talk about that. But in terms of scapula, that muscle's pulling double duty. Does that make sense? Like there's an overlap, like that muscle is pulling for two. It's like you could cook dinner for yourself or you could cook for two. Like that muscle's working for two. It's doing two things. It's very similar. Like if a muscle is working to prevent two different motions, it's really getting a workout. Now, again, we have other things in the shoulder and stuff, but I'm just showing you how muscles could overlap. And that's one way we could target our all right, let's do shoulders, frontal plane, shoulders, frontal plane. Do you need ab-buzz or ad-does? What's that? Say that again? Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do it. Does it matter if she's going up or coming down? Or would it be the same muscles? It'd be the same muscles, right? You wouldn't want to push yourself down. So the same muscles that brought you up are going to let you come down. Yeah, that's okay. That, you know, what's the good lesson about that is that's how much our brains want to just associate specific muscles with specific motions. That's what our brains want to do. And that's why, like, I'm here as your kinesiology therapist. Okay, so in an isometric, concentric, or eccentric, the external force is trying to abduct you. Whether you're coming up, it's trying to abduct you. Whether you're lowering yourself down, it's trying to abduct you. Whether you're holding that position, it's trying to abduct you. So we need adduction pullers. I emphasize it in 310, guys. It had nothing to do with naming these things. I wish they didn't sound so similar. But we have to remember and who are the major adduction pullers? That's where your lists or your circles can help. But we look at it in terms of agonist pull so that the motion in the muscles are in the same language so that we can then see contractions. But who are our adduction pullers? We have in this position, we're under 90 degrees, so our pectoralis major 100% can help us out. Latissimus dorsi is a big adduction puller. If the lat is pulling, then its sister muscle, the teres major, is pulling. The triceps long head is going to be pulling down there as well. Did I miss something? No. Those are the main ones also. So remember, same muscle, same exercise. The different motions is because of different contractions. And there are exceptions, but those exceptions are super rare and they're functionally tasked, like hitting the hammer, stomping the bug, running, sprinting. Those don't happen often. Let's do elbows. Okay, let's practice questions. You lower yourself down while doing a pull-up. Or I could say if you're looking at this position, isometric contraction to hold it, then you observe elbow extension. I mean, I could do it before and after. It's all seeing whether I give it to you or asking you to analyze. I'm doing this exercise and I observe elbow extension. Flexion pullers are going to do extension through eccentrics. Who are the flexion pullers? Brachialis, brachioradialis, biceps brachial. On the test, I'm just going to pull one. That's why you got to know all of them because I can randomly pull any of them. But again, brachialis through eccentrics. What I'm trying to teach you guys, and listen, if you don't need it, that's fine. How would I work the brachialis if I had to rehab it? How would I work it? My first question is, what does it do? And what does it do is, how does it pull? It's a flexion puller. So I need external forces that are trying to extend. When I see extension concentric, when I see flexion concentric, when I see extension eccentric, because there's going to be times where you just want to do concentrics. There's going to be parts in the rehab where you don't want to do eccentrics yet. So you're going to need to create the environment knowing these tools to be able to create the scenarios where you can just have concentrics, just have eccentrics, just have isometrics. We got to look at those things in pieces. material. We've done several examples. I'm gonna toss it to you guys. Maybe you'd like for me to teach or go over a specific muscle. Maybe you want me to, so I'm not, or a specific. So in other words, I'm done coming up with things because I feel we've kind of done as many as I can think of. So I'm gonna toss it over to you, and you don't have to say anything. But was there an exercise that you were looking at or going over that you were like, I just don't quite get it? Toss it out to me, we'll go over it together. Or is there a muscle that you like, look, all the muscles seem okay, but man, this one, I could go for him explaining that one again. Just taking advantage of our time, because my goal was to have all the stuff done before the break, because once the break happens, our sponges are done. Okay. So give that some thought, give it a minute, give it a couple of minutes. Is there any muscles you want me to go over again, touch upon, emphasize, any examples? And again, it's okay if it's not, but I just wanted to give everybody that opportunity to get one last question answered before break. Rotation and rotation would it be in terms of the motions themselves? Yes. No problem. No problem. And when I say no problem, that's understandable. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to get the skeleton, but I'm going to show you on my hands. We have the golf tee and the golf ball, the shoulder joint. The golf tee is not much of a socket. You know, if we were really playing golf, that golf ball could dislocate if there was a strong breeze. Because we want there to be a socket to hold it in place, but we don't want to overwhelm it where we don't get all of these extra movements in it. It's a fine line. It's like, I want to teach my sons responsibility, so I give them space, but they're also my sons that I want to protect. That's kind of stuff we're dealing with here. If the scapula did not rotate or reposition or move, this would be a left, then my shoulder could not get globally over my head. The scapula has to upwardly rotate to reposition the shoulder so that I can get my arms all the way up here. All of this motion does not happen at the glenohumeral joint, the shoulder joint. About 120 degrees of it happens there. Because remember, we have to keep, this isn't like a real golf ball. We only have half of it that actually can fit on the golf tee, the smooth stuff, right? We don't want this stuff on the golf tee. That's going to be a problem. So what happens is our shoulder, if the scapula doesn't rotate or reposition itself, we can get about this much before we run out of space. So how the scapula helps get our arms over our head is the scapula upwardly rotates about 60 degrees worth. So this 180 degrees that you see of arm motion, about 120 is made of here and about 60 is made of here. See? Yeah, you performed in front of people before. Pretend like you shot. I want you to feel it. I want you to put your hands, I'm not even going to put you on the camera, but put your hands on my scapula. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, now watch. You see retraction and protraction, elevation and depression. Now watch what happens. My scapula is literally going to move away from your hands when I do this. Right. Did you feel that? And it's going to come back when I do this. Gotcha. So when I do this, my scapula is leaning. And that's what we call upward rotation. Got it. Downward rotation. Upward, down. You're very well. Very well. Guys, we need more of that because remember, at the end of the day, we don't have a good mastery of emotion. Muscles and contractions are relevant. If I don't remember the difference between ab and adduction, then abductors and adductors are meaningless. So those are very important things to remember, to if she relaxed all of her muscles, upward rotation would happen. She has to make herself downward rotate. Because the exercise is trying to bring my arms over my head, right? It's trying to upward rotate. So pectoralis major crosses the shoulder joint. Pectoralis major, minor does not. Okay. The pectoralis major in anatomical position, a lady between two majors, pectoralis major, teres major. In anatomical position, the pectoralis major is an adduction puller, internal rotation puller, and the upper fibers, the clavicular fibers, have a vertical pull because they have obliquity here, so they have a flexion. But only the vertical fibers, the upper fiber. The pectoralis major is a midway muscle. It can switch function depending on your position. Below 90 degrees, which is what anatomical position is, it's pulling the humerus in a direction of adduction. Past 90 degrees, it's still trying to pull the humerus in, but this motion is called abduction. So if you were doing shoulder press, that's awesome. You get an extra big, powerful muscle to help pull in the direction of abduction past 90. The pec minor does not cross the shoulder. And so it's only pulling on the scapula. The pec minor runs from these ribs, these little red slits, to the coracoid process. Front back pull is a protraction pull. The down pull is the depression pull. And the downward rotation pull is really hard to see because the scapula is not flush. The scapula is angled. So most pictures you see is not as the seesaw would appear to be, like if you were standing on the side of the seesaw, but at an angle. So the pec minor is actually lateral. It's on the outside of the seesaw. Okay, so this would be upward rotation pullers. The pec minor would be a downward rotation. But again, it's hard to see from this angle because we're not looking at the scapula flush. That would be like us looking at a seesaw, but instead of seeing the seesaw like this, like we'd somehow go at an angle and see more of it like this, right? So we have to locally, that's why we learn global and local. Most of these views are kind of from one stance. We have to look at the scapula as it sits locally from its perspective and see the seesaw. And you can have some muscles that are trying to make the seesaw do this. You have some muscles that are trying to make the seesaw do that. Because the pec minor is on this side of the seesaw, there's upward rotation, be downward rotation. So to stretch the pec minor is commonly tight. A lot of that is our posture. But to stretch it really optimally, we want to get our arm up, not because of the glenohumeral joint, but because of the scapula. So by elevating the scapula, we give it a stretch. By upwardly rotating the scapula, we give it a stretch. And then if you go up against a wall and you retract the scapula, it gives it a really good stretch. So that's examples of position and understanding that because muscles only pull, if you move a joint in the opposite direction of its pull, it's going to get lengthened. Pectoralis major is a primary horizontal adductor. Pec major, anterior deltoid, or horizontal adductors. Lat, posterior deltoid, primarily for horizontal abductors. Remember on the test, I just said, hey, just two of each. Pec major, anterior, lat dorsi, posterior. I think that balances out really nicely. The reason going on a little rant here, but the reason you feel so strong, you remember we talked about this a couple weeks ago, the reason you feel so strong in a decline is because, and your body will actually create a decline. Y'all ever seen, I know you, that's not fair, baby that little, but I know you do. That's not fair, baby that. Check this out. That, right? So you know what's cool? Globally, the bar's still going straight up and down. But when you arc your back, you're literally changing the movements. Instead of pure horizontal adduction, now you have a combination of horizontal adduction and regular adduction. Your lat is not a horizontal adduction puller, but it is a regular adduction puller. So by creating a decline, you can use the lat as an agonistic muscle because of the adduction component. So that's cool. It's kind of cool. And anytime you can get pec and lat working as a team, it's a good day. Some strong muscles. So that's why we do that. Any other questions? So we have the game plan for Wednesday, 8:30 to 9:30. I'll be on call. I'll literally be looking at my phone. Are they going to call me? Are they going to call me? Maybe you don't. Maybe you do. But I would like for you guys to practice coming up with questions. Google random stuff, functional tasks, practice questions, give each other questions. And I'm available so that way if you're like, Dr. Campbell, we're looking at this question, we're not quite sure, call me. Let's talk about it. Let's look at it. How are we feeling? Are we feeling better about upper extremity than lower?